The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from USA Today for February 11th, 2026. Your reader for this hour is David Frothingham. First headline on the front page of today's USA Today is Federal Workers Find New Purpose. Laid Off Employees Take Skills to State, Local Level by Sarah D. Wire. Megan Burns was busy at work for the Department of Education in March 2025 when her computer restarted at exactly 5 p.m. When it turned back on, she learned her job as a civil rights attorney had been terminated. In a heartbeat, she and colleagues in 7 of the department's 10 civil rights offices were locked out and no longer federal employees. Public service was the only career Burns had ever had. She wasn't ready for it to be over. When I graduated law school, I specifically moved to D.C. because I knew I wanted to do public service and civil rights-based work. That has been all I've done, she said. More than 317,000 employees stopped working for the federal government in 2025, according to the Office of Personnel Management, as part of President Donald Trump's sweeping effort to downsize the government. The majority of employees took voluntary buyouts and early retirements, according to the agency. Tens of thousands of employees were fired. The layoffs and intentional downsizing led to a nationwide scramble as federal employees with specialized skills competed for private and nonprofit sector jobs. But like Burns, some former federal workers found they could continue serving by working at another level of government. The federal government's loss is their gain for sure, said Burns, now Deputy Director of the Maryland Department of Health's Office of Equal Opportunity Program. After federal layoffs were announced, states such as California, Hawaii, Maryland, New Mexico, New York, and Virginia urged federal employees to apply for local positions. Several offered to streamline the process and make the transition easier. Quote, "It's been a huge opportunity for communities that have captured really tenured, high-quality talent that they just couldn't have had access to in any other scenario," said Caitlin Lewis, who co-founded Work for America, which helps people find jobs in the public sector. Who's going to want you? After living all over the world for 25 years in the Foreign Service, Mark Shaw, 51, was ready to come home to Kansas City, Missouri. He had entered government service right after graduate school. Shaw oversaw arms control and compliance, monitored conformity with biological and chemical weapons treaties, and was director of the International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs section in Afghanistan. When he left in April, after working for 6 presidents, he was a Deputy Assistant Secretary at the U.S. State Department. The question becomes, what do you do with this career? Who is going to want you, he said. He applied to non-governmental organizations, nonprofits, and universities, telling them, "I'll mop the floors, I'll do anything to come back home." It was his mother who urged him to look into working for the city government, though he wasn't sure how his skills would fit. But Kansas City Mayor Quinton Lucas knew how useful such skills developed while working for the federal government could be to a city. He jumped at the chance to hire people like Shaw. Quote, "They understand how to navigate bureaucracy. They understand the core mission of what we are trying to do. They have just exceptional expertise," Lucas told USA Today. Getting that level experience, not having that available in large numbers, is not something local government is typically able to do. Lucas said he came into office in 2019 hoping to poach federal workers to work for the city, but found most weren't willing to leave the stability and security traditionally associated with federal employment. Now, Kansas City is competing with other cities for former federal employees with decades of experience who see city employment as a stable bet, he said. For the rest of America, it has been a benefit. I think a strong opportunity for us to really attract talent that in years past used to be centered exclusively in Washington, and now necessarily is looking at opportunities all around the country, he said. Shaw, who is now Kansas City's interim city auditor, said he likes not having the levels of bureaucracy he worked under at the State Department. Instead, he and his team report to the city council and have more flexibility to move quickly when they identify problems. The position immerses him in the community and lets him see the direct impact of the work, he said. And it lets his mother spend more time spoiling her grandson, he said. It's really satisfying. Meeting the need. Most of the country's more than 3 million federal employees are nonpartisan civil servants who remain in their roles no matter which party is in power. When Trump won the presidency again in late 2024, Lewis expected to focus on helping find public sector work for the about 4,000 political appointees who would soon lose their jobs. But, she said, we absolutely never could have imagined the volume of need that was going to occur come January and February of last year, when so many civil servants were laid off. Work for America's quickly propped up Civic Match program arranged job fairs, resume reviews, and mental health seminars for newly fired federal employees. They also work to help applicants and employers understand how national or even international job experience would translate to meet local and state needs. Local government often has crucial job vacancies, including human resources, finance, procurement, and operations, she said, as well as a gap in mid-year employees who eventually could become leaders. How many former federal workers found new public sector jobs is unclear, but more than 250 state and local governments use Civic Match, and 187 people have used it to land roles in state or local government since January 2025. He followed a calling. Austin Holland, 39, of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, went to law school primarily because he wanted to work for the federal government. He began serving in the Department of Housing and Urban Development General Counsel's office during Trump's first term. He resigned in May 2025 when the administration stopped allowing employees to occasionally work from home. Commuting from Lancaster every day wasn't sustainable, and moving with 2 children was too hard, he said. Quote, I really loved my job, and I really felt called to the work I was doing, he said. Holland considered jobs with nonprofits, cities, and states before landing as assistant counsel for the Pennsylvania Housing and Finance Agency. He worked in administration law at HUD, writing regulations, but also was exposed to a wide array of policy issues, 2 things he said have helped at the state level, where he gets to work on a wide variety of programs. Quote, even in big states like Pennsylvania, a state-level agency is still so much smaller than a federal agency, he said. Now he can see with his own eyes how he is helping people, Holland said. I'm much closer to the direct impact my work has. That's awesome. The next headline on the front page of today's USA Today reads, Grandkids Caregiving Fight Taken to Court. Relatives are not guaranteed a voice, by Jamie Frazier. Baby Brianna's arms twitched and her legs flopped against the cold concrete. She stopped breathing. The 16-month-old needed an ambulance to arrive within minutes and someone to pump air into her lungs with infant CPR until it got there. Brianna's life depended on who was with her when a hidden health condition stole her breath. A few weeks ago, it wasn't clear who that would be. Texas child welfare workers removed the girl and her brother, both under age 2, from their parents' home in January 2025. Their nana, Rochelle, cared for them for months until one day last September, a state official took the children from daycare without notice or explanation. Eventually, the kids were driven 170 miles to live with strangers. Afraid she'd never see Brianna and Jaden again, Rochelle decided to fight to bring them home. It would only happen if she could assert her voice in a court where she had, so far, felt voiceless. Quote, I'm doing everything I can to keep our family together, Rochelle, who was in her 50s, said. I hope in the end, like my chaplain said, I don't make any mistakes that can't be undone. She was not technically part of the court case that will decide her grandkids' future. She was the relative who cared for the kids a few days each week since birth, did so full-time for 7 months as a kinship foster parent, and committed in writing to be their permanent caregiver should the court terminate parental rights for her son and his partner. But in the eyes of the children's court, she was only a grandmother. Associate Judge Paul Pareles, who oversees the case involving Rochelle's grandchildren in Bexar County, said rules of court that intimidate and confuse many relatives are nonetheless necessary to ensure the best outcomes for kids. I wish it could always go extremely smoothly, he said, but it is an adversarial setting. At hearings where child welfare and court officials discuss a young relative's future, judges can tell loved ones like Rochelle they don't have standing to participate. Few can afford representation to file a motion to join the case. One lawyer who returned Rochelle's call about intervening asked for $15,000 up front. USA Today is using first names for Rochelle's family to protect the privacy of children too young to consent to sharing sensitive personal information. A reporter confirmed her story through dozens of interviews with the parents, friends, and officials, as well as review of hundreds of pages of emails, text, court transcripts, and other documents. "I'm not seeing any good come out of this," Rochelle said a few days after the state took her grandkids. "I don't have the financial ability to hire a decent attorney." Still, she would not give up. More was at stake than she knew. Each year, more than 500,000 kids live in foster care after a civil judge removes them from their parents' custody. Federal law requires child welfare agencies to prioritize placing kids in the care of relatives rather than strangers. Decades of research show children have better long-term outcomes for health, education, and employment, even though relative caregivers tend to be older, poorer, and sicker than stranger foster parents. Despite that preference, kinship foster parents are not guaranteed a voice in court proceedings that will shape their family for decades. "Grandparents don't have the same constitutional rights as parents," said Amy Harfield, the National Policy Director and Senior Staff Attorney for the Children's Advocacy Institute. "The decisions to take kids, return them, or terminate parents' rights are all made by a civil court. The judge evaluates evidence presented by the child welfare agency's attorney and the parents, who, in most states, are guaranteed legal counsel. A 1971 federal law also requires representation in court for children, although it doesn't have to be an attorney. There is no one appointed to represent the kinship caregiver," Perales said. Yet experts say judges have wide discretion in choosing who can speak in their courtrooms. "It depends on the case," Perales said. Since her grandson's birth in 2023, Rochelle, a former child nutritionist, cared for him, and later his newborn sister, a few days each week. She read them books, played with them at the neighborhood park, and took them to doctor's appointments. "I'm no fly-by-night grandma," Rochelle said. "I've been there from the beginning." The kids' father and mother, now 22 and 20, struggled financially and with responsibility of raising kids while growing up themselves. In January 2025, someone filed a suspected abuse or neglect report with the state's Child Protection Hotline. It might have been a mandatory report made by a hospital worker after Brianna was brought there twice in 10 days for breathing problems. The resulting investigation by the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services deemed the young parents unfit caregivers. Rochelle stepped up to raise the little ones. Jaden, who loves to patter across the floor in his push car, was not yet 2, and Brianna, who required a nebulizer to help her breathe, was 3 months old. Rochelle stepped up to raise. Texas DFPS declined repeated requests to discuss Rochelle's situation. As USA Today previously reported, Rochelle's stability faltered when the state took weeks to secure child care for the kids in San Antonio, not Austin, as promised. Although Rochelle lives in San Antonio, she commutes 80 miles up to 4 days per week. She attends Austin Presbyterian Theological Seminary, where she also works as a master's degree student and pastoral ordination candidate. She missed classes and work to make the daycare's drop-off and pickup times. With her income cut by half, she struggled to keep up with mortgage payments. Whenever the daycare noticed Brianna wheezing, they called Rochelle to pick up the kids early because workers would not administer her nebulizer. She had to drive 2 hours. Rochelle's persistent push for Austin-based daycare sparked conflict with the children's caseworkers and attorney who appointed to represent them. "You cannot say you care about the children and not care about their caregiver," she said. At court hearings in May and August, Rochelle tried to tell Perales about her struggles with the department covering daycare in the wrong city. He swore her in and let her speak. She was hopeful when he seemed to tell the caseworker to secure child care in Austin. "We've got a grandparent very dedicated to providing a home for these children," he said, according to the transcript of the hearing. "Let's do what we can to facilitate and ensure that placement doesn't break down." But the judge also told Rochelle that, in the future, she should not speak in his court unless called to testify. Perales said she needed to share her concerns with the kid's caseworker or Sean Sheffield, the children's attorney ad litem, who was supposed to argue for the children's best interests. She did not have legal standing. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 15 minutes past the hour. Mr. Sheffield will contact you, Perales said. He'll go out and see you. Certainly you can share whatever is going on with the children. Rochelle could not catch Sheffield before he left the court that day. She missed him after the next hearing, too. In the intervening weeks, records shared with USA Today shows that he did not respond to her emails or calls. She said he talked with her on the phone twice. Rochelle lost hope that Sheffield would help her navigate the conflicting messages from caseworkers and fight for the day care she needed, so she stopped trying to call him. On Sheffield's only visit to her home before the kids were taken, Sheffield interrupted Rochelle each time she spoke. In an audio recording of the meeting, he said daycare in Austin was an issue for him. At the next court hearing, the children's attorney told the judge that Rochelle was not communicating with him. He said the kids may need to be placed in a different home. Sheffield did not say he had seen her 3 days earlier. He did not relay Rochelle's concerns, as the judge had suggested he would. When a reporter asked why, Sheffield seemed confused. "Just so you understand, I represent the children in this matter," he wrote in an email, "not Rochelle." On September 22nd, Rochelle left school early to pick up the kids and donate diapers. As she was driving home, the car's Bluetooth system pinged repeatedly with text alerts and incoming calls from family. They told her that state caseworkers had come to the daycare and taken her grandkids. A spokesperson told USA Today the state would take a kid from a relative's home for 3 reasons: that caregiver's request, reunification with the parents, or safety concern. Sheffield later told USA Today the kids were removed due to access issues. Eventually, Jaden and Brianna landed with strangers in a Houston area foster home 3 hours away. Rochelle saw them 3 times in those 3 months. The state canceled 7 parental visits, citing an inability to schedule transportation. Rochelle had 2 ways to get her grandkids back. She could convince the department and Sheffield to return them, or she could figure out how to file legal paperwork to join the court case and then convince the judge to reunite her family. That wouldn't be easy, but it felt like the only winnable course. She had planned a first birthday party for Brianna that would never happen. The Nana had picked up the 2 outfits for the baby girl, including a long-sleeve onesie with an elephant crown by a pink bow on its front. At a November meeting set by DFPS, department officials in Sheffield never said Rochelle harmed the kids or was likely to hurt them in the future, according to the detailed minutes and attendee descriptions. In fact, Tara Bledsoe, a program supervisor, said the children could return to their grandma's house if others agreed. Rochelle's son said he wanted the kids back in his mother's care. His partner had said she did not want her children with strangers. Sheffield, who attended by phone, disagreed. He said, "I don't want those children on the road," and he asked, "How do you have time to spend with the kids?" Rochelle wondered why Sheffield never called her references or the community network hit supported her family. She could not understand how a commute taken by thousands of people or day-long daycare used by many working parents was reason enough for her grandkids to be placed with strangers. Without a logical answer, Rochelle reached another conclusion: racial or class bias played a role. Sheffield insisted race or class bias played no factor in my decision regarding daycare. However, he wrote, I must determine what is in the best interest of the children. Because Sheffield disagreed with the department, Rochelle knew she would not get her grandkids back unless the judge ordered it. Unable to afford a lawyer, she set out to write and file legal documents on her own. She stayed on campus in Austin overnight, napping in the student lounge when she wasn't researching what exactly she might file to gain a voice in the courtroom. One of my fears is that I don't want to file the legal stuff and mess things up. I'm not an attorney, Rochelle said. You're talking about destroying someone's family. She called a legal aid hotline for advice. A former child welfare worker pointed out state laws and department policies that Rochelle could cite in her filing. A real estate lawyer who was a friend of a friend helped her format her petition and exhibits. Rochelle typed six section signs in a neat column at the top of the page. The Presbyterian ended the petition with a prayer, the section where a filer describes what they hope the judge will do. It took several weeks and 5 tries. Finally, on November 12th, Rochelle's legal petition was accepted by the clerk of the court. It read, "The intervener's interests are unique and require independent representation to ensure a complete and just resolution of the case that preserves familial bonds." A week before the hearing, a seminary classmate told Rochelle that his church had raised several $1,000s to pay the retainer of a lawyer to represent her in court for one day. Because Rochelle had successfully written and filed a petition on her own, the temporary legal counsel would be able to speak to the judge. As part of a planned weekend visit, a few days before court on December 15th, the grandkids were dropped off at Rochelle's house. They attended a church Christmas party and went to a celebration hosted by Texas grandparents raising grandchildren. She drove to her son's apartment so the kids could see their parents. On a Thursday, 4 days before the hearing, a state child welfare supervisor emailed Rochelle. She offered to return the kids under one condition Sheffield had set: daycare in San Antonio, not Austin. Rochelle texted back, "I have sent your email to my attorney, and she says you can call her to discuss." No one replied to her or answered her lawyer's calls. On the next Monday morning, Rochelle was waiting for a department transport van to pick up the kids to return them to the distant foster home when her lawyer called. She told her the kids would return to Rochelle's care immediately. Now wrangling 2 young children, Rochelle could not go to court that day. She attended by Zoom instead. Rochelle left herself on mute. Her lawyer made a few short comments, but had told her she could not bring up topics beyond those on the agenda. Rochelle was glad to have her grandkids home for Christmas, but it was not a happy holiday. "I'm stressed and panicked," she said. "It's back to the way it was." Rochelle said that in 3 months living apart from his Nana, Jaden's development regressed and his behavior became more challenging. She had to reestablish services for the kids, signing up for WIC, scheduling speech therapy, and applying for diaper donation programs. Although a supervisor had told her lawyer Rochelle would receive a kinship foster stipend as of December 15th, she was still checking her mail for it on February 1st. In Texas, relatives are paid half as much as strangers who take in foster kids. Similar to the promise made in January 2025, a department official told Rochelle's lawyer she would have San Antonio daycare approved within 3 days. In fact, it took a month. "I can be grateful and thankful I have my grandchildren back. I can also be livid." On a recent Friday morning, Rochelle loaded the kids into her car for daycare. While she was buckling Jaden, she heard Brianna moan. The girl's arms and legs shook, eyes half open. She didn't respond when Rochelle called her name. She sighed like a last breath. She stopped breathing. The grandma screamed as she ran into the light of her driveway. Rochelle began infant CPR and yelled for a neighbor to call 911. After several chest compressions, Brianna startled awake and cried. She took a deep breath. Her eyes fluttered open, then closed. She stopped breathing again. Rochelle kept pushing down on the onesie with the elephant wearing a pink bow. Brianna came to and seemed to die 4 more times before an ambulance arrived and administered oxygen. Doctors at Children's Hospital would later determine that Brianna likely had a brachial episode, which is most often caused by nerve injury at birth that requires surgery to correct. It paralyzed the 16-month-old diaphragm so she couldn't breathe. Without Rochelle's chest compressions, Brianna likely would be dead. This article was produced as a project for the USC Annenberg Center for Health Journalism's 2025 Child Welfare Impact Reporting Fund. The next headline on the front page of today's USA Today reads, "U.S. Skaters' Path to Olympics Paved with Love, Loss, Resilience," by Jordan Mendoza. Dateline is Milan. After Maxim Naumov finished in 4th place at the 2025 U.S. Figure Skating Championships for the 3rd straight year, his father, Vadim, wanted to game plan. Vadim and Maxim's mother, Evgenia Shishkova, were two-time Olympic pair skaters for Russia, and they knew Maxim's upcoming year was crucial with the 2026 Winter Olympics on the horizon. The patriarch laid out a plan for the rest of the season. It was time to change the mindset and approach, get more consistent, and be resilient. He detailed what they were going to do, how they would do it, and when it would happen. It was an emotional, productive 45-minute conversation. It ended up being one of the last conversations they had together. A few days later, Vadim and Shishkova were among the 67 people killed in the mid-air collision between American Airlines Flight 5342 and an Army helicopter near Washington, D.C. on January 29, 2025. They were among the 28 figure skating coaches, young athletes, and parents who were returning from a development camp. It was an unimaginable tragedy, and Naumov didn't know if he could skate anymore. All I wanted to do in that moment was to lay in my bed or lay in my couch and just rot, essentially, he said. He contemplated what to do. After a few months, he decided to return to the ice. He wanted to compete in the 2025-26 season. His main support system and coaches no longer with him. He had to start from scratch. How can someone overcome such a loss? He remembered his dad's words, be resilient. Naumov persisted. Now he is representing the United States in the 2026 Winter Olympics. It has been a whirlwind of a year, but in Milano Cortina, the 24-year-old from Norwood, Massachusetts, would fulfill a family dream that began when he was 5 years old. He is carrying the memory, love, and guidance of his parents with him along the way. Getting back to skating. Naumov didn't complete until 8 months after the collision. He finished 9th in the 2025 Lombardia Trophy event and was in the same spot at the Grand Prix de France. Yet he got a big boost by winning the 2025 Ice Challenge, his first senior-level first-place finish. It gave him some confidence going into the 2026 U.S. Championships with Olympic spots up for grabs. Ilya Malinin of Virginia was already a lock to make the squad. Naumov was in the conversation for one of the final two sports, but was not a favorite. Everyone at the Nationals knew his story and wanted him to succeed. It's why there was a resounding cheer when he took the ice for warm-ups for the short program. That night, he delivered an emotional performance, and although he acknowledged it wasn't perfect, it was clean, and Naumov earned a standing ovation. When he left the ice, he held up a photo of himself, about 3 years old, holding hands with his mother and father in one of the first times on ice with skates. He gave the photo a kiss and broke down in tears when he got a score that put him in first place for the moment. I really just wanted them to be present in the kiss and cry, he said. I mean, that's such an important moment. He ended up in fourth place heading into the free skate, giving him a shot to not only finish in the top 3, but also make the Olympic team. Look how far we've come. Naumov brought multiple photos of his parents with him to the Nationals, and the night before the free skate, he grabbed one and sat in a chair with it for nearly 20 minutes. It was a moment to connect with his parents before one of the biggest nights of his life. To just be like, look how far we've come, look what we've done, look at all the sacrifices we made, everything that we've been through, everything that we've planned, all coming to fruition, and today is the day to get it, he said. It was an emotional night for me. Naumov needed a strong outing in the free skate. Although he did what he needed, he was behind Andrew Trogashev with 3 skaters left. Then everything unraveled for everyone else. Jason Brown, a presumed Olympic favorite, had a disastrous outing that ended his chances. Tomoki Hiwatashi, who was in second, struggled. Naumov was guaranteed a top 3 finish and hours away from his dream. I needed to have a moment to myself. I took a step away and just sobbed, like I just bawled my eyes out, he said. He felt he gave everything he could to earn his Olympic spot, and it came to fruition. Naumov made the squad alongside Malinin and Torgashev. This year, the U.S. figure skating told skaters in person that they had made the Olympic team, so it was even sweeter when USFS Chief High Performance Officer Justin Dillon got to deliver the news. For Max, I know this has been a year where he's really worked toward having that dream come true, Dillon said. There's many memories I'm going to have sharing the selection of people named to the team. A blessing to share his story. Naumov has brought several memories of his parents with him to Milan. He said he tries to delegate 30 minutes to an hour every week just to have space and connect with them. It has been just more than a year since the crash, as Naumov prepared to take the ice for the short program February 10th and the free skate February 12th. Being on the world stage, Naumov knows he's going to be asked about his parents over and over. It could be annoying or upsetting to talk about it that much. It could be painful having to relive and be reminded of what happened, but that's not the case for Naumov. Yes, there are parts that are difficult to talk about, but ultimately Naumov views it as a privilege. He wants people to be moved by his story, planning to share it until he no longer can. It's truly a blessing to have the opportunity to share this story. It has been like my voice giving out until I literally can't talk about it anymore. My intention is to share it as much as possible, because not only do they deserve all of the praise and recognition and the fact that I wouldn't be here without them, but also just to inspire like other athletes or other people in general. Naumov's programs will be emotionally charged and will hit the heart of the audience. As Torgashev said, you can see Naumov fighting for everything, heart on his sleeve, just pouring blood, sweat, and tears into every performance. The year began with loss and ends with living the dream his parents hoped for their son, and it all started with that last conversation with Mom and Dad. All the sacrifices and time and dedication that my parents and I spent together on this dream, Naumov said. We truly did it together. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 31 minutes after the hour. The next headline on this front page reads, West's mild winter is threatening water supplies, ecosystems, more. Concerns rise as snowpack levels lagging, by Doyle Rice. While the East may have been plunged into a snowy deep freeze this winter, weather data shows something perhaps more notable is happening in the West, where snowpack has been low and temperatures high. In fact, much of the West is on track for one of its mildest winters on record, according to a recent report from Weather.com. For example, people in normally snowy Salt Lake City have barely seen a flake of snow, and Phoenix is sweltering through its warmest winter since records began, according to AccuWeather meteorologist Paul Pastelok. And overall, despite the eastern chill, amazingly, it's the fifth warmest start to winter since 1981, when the entire country is figured in, Washington Post meteorologist Ben Knoll said on X. Consequential economic impacts already underway. Mountainous snow is vital for ski tourism and as a source of water, so the lack of snow in the West is worrisome, experts said. Snowpack is of critical economic and ecological importance to Western communities, according to a recent report from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Consequential economic impacts have already occurred, especially for the recreation sector and the communities that rely on it. Water supply concerns continue to increase, impacting key economic sectors like agriculture, recreation, and energy. The Weather.com report said that the West relies heavily on the mountain snowpack that builds up over the winter as a source of water throughout the year, which is steadily released into rivers and reservoirs as temperatures climb in spring and summer. Much of the recent precipitation has fallen as rain, not snow. Precipitation falling as rain tends to run off before it can recharge reservoirs and groundwater, according to a release from NASA. On the other hand, winter snowpack that melts in the spring can produce a more metered, sustained water supply. The health of the mountain snowpack has implications for ecosystems, wildfire dynamics, and water availability for agriculture and other uses during drier times of the year, said NASA. The NASA release said. How dire is the situation in the West? Snow cover across the western United States on February 1st was 139,322 square miles, the lowest February 1st snow cover in satellite record since 2001, according to NOAA. Also, as of February 1st, Oregon, Colorado, and Utah have reported record low statewide snowpack. Widespread snowpack records go back to the early 1980s, NOAA said. Specifically, a January dry spell resulted in most states receiving 50% or less of normal precipitation, the NOAA report said. Combined with above normal temperatures and sunny days, this resulted in little snow accumulation and some snow melt across the West. Historically, January is a significant snow accumulation month for much of the Pacific Northwest and Northern Rockies. Why so cold and snowy in the east, but so warm and dry in the west? A ridge of high pressure that has dominated the western half of the country, allowing for consistent warmer weather to prevail, as well as causing the jet stream to steer storms farther north, limiting snowfall for the mountains, the Weather.com report said. Randall Cerveny, a geographer at Arizona State University, explained further in an email to USA Today, very often the atmosphere over North America acts in a pronounced seesaw pattern. As a result, something called the Pacific North American teleconnection. In its positive phase, which is what we are currently in, we have a jet stream arching northward over the western half of the country, in which we call an upper level ridge, and dipping far south over the eastern half of the country, in which we call an upper level trough. Cerveny said this means that warm air from the tropics and subtropics moves northward over the western half of the country, making the southwest hot, and cold air pours south from the Arctic into the eastern half of the country, making the east cold. Pastelok said this overall pattern from northern Pacific to the northern Atlantic has not changed dramatically over the winter season. In addition, he said the cold in the east was also boosted by a few unwelcome appearances from the polar vortex. Pattern shift ahead? According to NOAA report, a pattern shift is expected across the West with wetter than normal conditions favored over the next 2 weeks. However, warmer than normal temperatures are still favored for large parts of the West, which could further inhibit snowpack development. Time is running short on reaching average peak median snow water equivalent, which occurs in March and April in most basins in the West. Snowfall deficits will be difficult to make up, but abundant snowfall over the next couple of months could reduce impacts, the report concluded. Moving on to the second page of today's USA Today. The first headline reads, Talks on Reforms for DHS Ongoing. Deadline to shut down agency is just days away, by Zachary Shirmele. Dateline is Washington. Congress and the White House are locked in negotiations over potential reforms to the Department of Homeland Security as a deadline to shut down the agency approaches by the end of the week. Lawmakers have until the end of February 13th to reach an agreement or risk jeopardizing funding for the Transportation Security Administration and Coast Guard, among other divisions of the 9/11 era cabinet agency that could be impacted by yet another lapse in appropriations. Unlike during the record-breaking government shutdown in the fall, Trump administration officials have been engaged in the past few weeks in serious talks with lawmakers on Capitol Hill. The ongoing discussions reflect a bipartisan unease over the tactics of federal agents in President Trump's nationwide immigration enforcement surge, especially since 37-year-old nurse Alex Preddy's killing by Border Patrol agents in Minnesota in January. Last week, House and Senate Democrats released a list of 10 demands to curb DHS, which oversees Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, and Customs and Border Protection, or CBP. Those wishes included a ban on mask wearing for federal agents, stricter use of force standards, and prohibiting immigration enforcement operations in sensitive locations such as schools and churches. Since then, Democrats have been trying to broker a deal with their GOP counterparts and the White House, which has offered a counterproposal, according to an administration official. The contours of the White House's offer weren't immediately widely known among lawmakers. Senator Tim Kaine, a Democrat from Virginia, told reporters February 9th he was aware of the counterproposal but hadn't seen the details. Senator Jeanne Shaheen, Democrat from New Hampshire, said it wasn't clear to her what kind of progress had been made in recent days among the negotiators in her party. Hopefully people are working to get something done, she said. Even if the February 13th deadline passes, the consequences will be limited. The rest of the government has already been funded through the rest of the fiscal year. Even ICE, the division of DHS, whose tactics have been at the center of the reform talks, would continue operating. It received $75 billion in funding over the next several years in President Trump's signature legislation popularly known as the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Still, the clock is ticking. Whether an agreement comes together before TSA workers could see their pay threatened isn't clear. Whether Republicans and Democrats would be willing to pass another short-term DHS funding extension to buy time for a compromise isn't guaranteed either. The next headline on this page reads, President threatens to block U.S.-Canada bridges opening, wants 50% ownership, by Swapna Venugopal Ramaswamy. President Donald Trump said he will not allow a bridge connecting Detroit and Windsor, Ontario, to open until the United States is fully compensated for everything, further expressing his frustration about a possible Canada-China trade deal and baselessly predicting China will terminate all ice hockey being played in Canada. The Gordie Howe International Bridge, a $4.6 billion, 1.5-mile infrastructure project that connects Detroit with Windsor, was approved in 2014. The 6-lane bridge, expected to open in early 2026, would be one of the largest ports of entry in North America, designed to improve traffic flow and border security. Canada is building a massive bridge between Ontario and Michigan. They own both the Canada and the United States side, and of course, built it with virtually no U.S. content. Trump wrote on Truth Social on February 9th, President Barack Hussein Obama stupidly gave them a waiver so they could get around the Buy American Act and not use any American products, including our steel. Now, the Canadian government expects me, as President of the United States, to permit them to just take advantage of America. Trump also sought 50% ownership of the bridge. We will start negotiations immediately. With all that we have given them, we should own perhaps at least one half of this asset, he wrote. The president then pivoted to his displeasure over a possible trade deal between Canada and China. Last month, Trump threatened to impose a 100% tariff on goods imported from Canada if the country moves ahead with a trade deal with China, after a string of insults lobbed at the United States neighbor during the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. Referring to Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney as Governor Carney, drawing on his oft-stated desire to annex Canada and absorb it as the 51st state of the United States, Trump wrote that if Carney thinks he's going to make Canada a drop-off port for China to send goods and products into the United States, he is sorely mistaken. Canada has not yet reached a trade deal with the United States, and the 2020 Canada-U.S.-Mexico agreement is up for review this year. Prime Minister Carney wants to make a deal with China, which will eat Canada alive. We'll just get the leftovers. I don't think so, Trump wrote on February 9th. The first thing China will do is terminate all ice hockey being played in Canada and permanently eliminate the Stanley Cup. The tariffs Canada charges us for our dairy products have, for many years, been unacceptable, putting our farmers at great financial risk, Trump continued. I will not allow this bridge to open until the United States is fully compensated for everything we have given them, and also, importantly, Canada treats the United States with the fairness and respect that we deserve. The president has been incensed with Carney ever since his speech at Davos describing a rupture in the world order and making clear Canada opposed tariffs imposed by the United States to further Trump's desire to acquire Greenland, and stood firmly with Denmark on its sovereignty over the island. We are in the midst of a rupture, not a transition, Carney said, January 20th. Great powers have begun using economic integration as weapons. The question for middle powers, like Canada, is not whether to adapt to this new reality. We must, Carney said. Middle powers must act together, because if we're not at the table, we're on the menu. Trump responded that Canada should be grateful to the United States. Trump announced on Truth Social that he was excluding Carney from his Board of Peace, which the president established to help rebuild Gaza in the Middle East, but has since expanded to include other conflicts. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of the USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 45 minutes after the hour. Moving on to page 3, the first headline reads, Lawmakers, Redacted Records Yield 6 More Suspects, by Bart Jansen. Dateline is Washington. 2 House members who led the effort to force the Justice Department to release more documents about accused sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein said they discovered at least 6 more suspected accomplices. The department began allowing lawmakers February 9th to review millions of records that remain confidential. Representatives Thomas Massie, a Republican from Kentucky, and Ro Khanna, a Democrat from California, said they found additional suspects among names that had remained blacked out in publicly released records. Quote, "What we want is the men who Jeffrey Epstein trafficked women to. We want those names published," Massie told reporters. "In 2 hours, we found 6 men whose names have been redacted who are implicated in the way that the files are presented." End quote. The revelations are part of the latest conflict between Congress and the DOJ over the release of millions of documents about Epstein that remain confidential. Upcoming congressional hearings and depositions will focus on what has remained secret for years. Congress approved the law in November that directed the department to release all its files about Epstein, who died by suicide in prison while awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges. Lawmakers and people who accused Epstein of abuse aim to track down powerful business and political leaders who might have conspired with him, besides Ghislaine Maxwell, an associate who is now serving a 20-year prison sentence. The department has released 3.5 million documents out of 6 million. Lawmakers have pressed the department for why names other than those of people who accused him of abuse have been blacked out in the records, and why the remaining 2.5 million haven't been released. The 6 men whom Massie said were likely incriminated by their inclusion in the records, some with photographs, have been redacted for no obvious reason. There is no explanation for why, Khanna said. That's really concerning. The lawmakers said part of the problem with lingering redactions was that FBI or grand jury documents arrived with redactions at the department. But lawmakers said the department was supposed to release those records without redactions under the law. They need to do their homework, Massie said. Attorney General Pam Bondi is scheduled to testify February 11th at the House Judiciary Committee, and Massie said he plans to ask about what remains secret in the records. One previously redacted FBI document for 2019 listed Les Wexner, a financial client of Epstein's and former CEO of Victoria's Secret, as a possible co-conspirator. Massie questioned why Wexner's name had been redacted, and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche removed the redaction. Blanche said the document had listed numerous names of people who accused Epstein of abuse. "We have just unredacted Les Wexner's name from this document, but his name already appears in the files thousands of times," Blanche said on social media. "DOJ is hiding nothing." Wexner hasn't been accused of wrongdoing and hasn't spoken publicly about his relationship with Epstein, but the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee scheduled a deposition with him for February 18th. Massie found another document with 4 of 18 redacted names belonging to men who were born before 1970. Massie said the department needed to explain why the names were hidden. Blanche said the document contained numerous names of people who accused Epstein of abuse. "We have just unredacted all victim names from this document," Blanche said on social media. "The DOJ is committed to transparency." The next headline on this page is DOJ wants to scrap Bannon's conviction. He served time for contempt of Congress, by Maureen Gropp and Bart Jansen. Dateline is Washington. The Trump administration is seeking to overturn former Trump aide Steve Bannon's contempt of Congress conviction. In filings to the District Court and Supreme Court, the Justice Department said the government has determined that dismissal of this criminal case is in the interests of justice. The filings did not elaborate further. Bannon defied a congressional subpoena demanding he testify about the Capitol attack on January 6, 2021. President Donald Trump has criticized the prosecution of Bannon and others as political, including the approximately 1,600 people he pardoned for charges related to the attack. A dismissal of Bannon's case would avoid the need for Trump to pardon him, too. At the end of his first term as president, Trump pardoned Bannon as he was awaiting trial in Manhattan for a different case, fraud charges tied to a border wall fundraising effort. Bannon already has served his 4-month sentence for his 2022 conviction for contempt of Congress, after the Supreme Court in 2024 rejected his bid to remain free while he appealed. Now, Bannon wants the Supreme Court to overturn his conviction. Responding to Bannon's appeal, the Justice Department told the Supreme Court it has asked the district court to toss out the conviction. Accordingly, the Supreme Court should send the case back to the district court to consider dismissal, the Justice Department said. Barbara McQuaid, a law professor at the University of Michigan and a former U.S. attorney, said the move sounded political because there was no reason to think an appellate court would overturn the conviction. It strikes me as a purely political move, McQuaid told USA Today. The Trump administration continues to use the Department of Justice to reward allies and punish critics. It is a disgusting abuse of the rule of law. Bannon said he was relying on his lawyer's advice not to respond to the subpoena from a House panel investigating the attack on the Capitol until another issue was resolved, the matter of if the former White House aide was protected by Trump's claim of executive privilege. That doctrine allows presidents to keep confidential some executive branch communications. House lawyers argued that Bannon had thumbed his nose at the committee and ignored the subpoena. The committee sought to question Bannon, a political strategist for Trump, partly because he told associates from China on October 31, 2020, that Trump would falsely declare victory even if he lost the election and said it would be a firestorm. In a podcast, Bannon said former Vice President Mike Pence spit the bit, which meant he was no longer supporting Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election. The committee described the comment as amplifying the pressure on Pence. Bannon called Trump at least twice on January 5, 2021, and predicted on a right-wing talk radio show that all hell is going to break loose tomorrow. A jury found Bannon guilty of contempt of Congress on 2 counts because he refused to comply with a lawful congressional subpoena, and an appeals court affirmed the convictions. The next headline reads, Judge blocks California mask ban for agents, yet she upholds laws requiring display of IDs, by Janine Santucci. A federal judge has blocked California from enforcing a new law that would ban federal immigration agents and other law enforcement officers from wearing face coverings. The Department of Justice sued to strike down the ban in November after it was signed by Governor Gavin Newsom in September. In a ruling on February 9th, U.S. District Judge Christina Snyder preliminarily struck down the law and upheld another California law that requires federal officers to display their identification while performing their official duties. The Trump administration hailed the ruling as a win, with Attorney General Pam Bondi calling it a key court victory. The DOJ argued in the lawsuit that immigration agents face a real threat of criminal liability from state officials who have made clear their intent to target federal officers and disrupt federal law enforcement activities, including federal immigration enforcement. Quote, these federal agents are harassed, doxxed, obstructed, and attacked on a regular basis just for doing their jobs. We have no tolerance for it, Bondi said in her statement on February 9th. Newsom also counted the ruling to uphold the identification law as a clear win for the rule of law and said no badge and no name means no accountability. In the ruling, Snyder said that the federal government would likely prove the mask ban to be unconstitutional because it treated state officers differently than federal officers. The law included local law enforcement officers and federal officers, but not state officers. The ruling comes as political tension is heightened over President Donald Trump's surge of immigration enforcement actions in primarily Democratic-led states and cities. Weeks of protests have spread nationally after federal officers fatally shot 2 U.S. citizens, Renee Good and Alex Preddy, in Minneapolis, where the administration recently announced the departure of hundreds of immigration enforcement personnel. In videos and photos, immigrations and customs enforcement and other federal agents are routinely seen wearing face coverings while conducting operations, making arrests and clashing with protesters. Los Angeles has also been a target for enhanced immigration enforcement, which sparked protests that at times turned violent last summer. Scott Wiener, the state senator who introduced the mask ban, said in a statement that he will introduce new legislation to include state officers, and said the ruling demonstrates that California has the right to block officers from covering their faces if state officers are included. Today's federal court ruling is a huge win. The court ruled that California has the power to protect our community by banning officers, including federal agents, from wearing masks, and thus inflicting terror and shielding themselves from accountability. Wiener, a Democrat whose area of representation includes San Francisco, said, ICE and Border Patrol are covering their faces to maximize their terror campaign and to insulate themselves from accountability. We won't let them get away with it, Wiener said. You're listening to a reading of articles and features from USA Today for Wednesday, February 11th, 2026, on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We'll return for more readings after this short break. Your reader for this hour has been David Frothingham.
You're listening to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. As of this year, our agency has broadcast more than 300,000 hours of radio readings. Volunteer radio readers read newspapers, magazines, and books to area people who are blind or have a print disability, who are provided reading radios. Radio Reading's broadcast signal is provided at no charge by WNED. Radio Reading broadcasts from studios at 1199 Harlem Road in suburban Buffalo. Please let others know about Radio Reading. It's your service. For more information on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, call 716-821-5555.
We'll be continuing now with our reading of articles from today's issue of the USA Today. Your reader for this hour is Mary Gilmore. We'll be doing the sports first. Tanking crisis in NBA gone too far. It's no longer a whisper. The NBA has a brazen and embarrassing tanking problem. The Utah Jazz closed the third quarter in a Monday, February 9th game against the Miami Heat, up by 3. They had been dominating Miami in the paint on both ends. Their size was a big reason why. Forward Jaren Jackson Jr., the prized acquisition Utah made just 1 week prior, was at 22 points through 25 minutes. Star forward Lauri Markkanen added 17 points in 24 minutes and 38 seconds. Veteran center Yosef Nurek was a problem. We'll be continuing now with our reading of articles from today's issue of the USA Today. Your reader for this hour is Mary Gilmore. We'll be doing the sports first. Tanking crisis in NBA gone too far. It's no longer a whisper. The NBA has a brazen and embarrassing tanking problem. The Utah Jazz closed the third quarter in a Monday, February 9th game against the Miami Heat up by 3. They had been dominating Miami in the paint on both ends. Their size was a big reason why. Forward Jaren Jackson Jr., the prized acquisition Utah made just 1 week prior, was at 22 points through 25 minutes. Star forward Lauri Markkanen added 17 points in 24 minutes and 38 seconds. Veteran center Yosef Nurek was a problem all night to the tune of 10 points and 16 rebounds. Yet, with a victory in sight, Jazz coach Will Hardy took self-sabotage and shameless tanking to a new level, sitting the trio for the entire fourth quarter. In a twist of karmic justice, Miami was so poor down the stretch that the Jazz somehow overcame a late 5-point deficit to win 115 to 111. This was the second consecutive time that Hardy had pulled a stunt. Even worse, it appears that this will be Utah's standard operating procedure moving forward. After the game, a reporter asked Hardy how close he was to subbing Jackson or Markkanen back in. "I wasn't," Hardy responded, plainly and without elaboration. This is an existential problem, one the NBA Commissioner Adam Silver and the league's Board of Governors must fix. Yes, the draft is expected to feature at least 3 elite-level players, but if the NBA doesn't take prompt action, anti-competitive behavior will spread to other teams also looking to manipulate outcomes. It's out in the open now, and this will come to stain the last quarter of the season. The product will suffer, and fans, as they should, will flee. As such, the NBA is compromised. With the explosive growth of online sports gambling and prediction markets, these actions only invite further cracks in the integrity and the competitive balance of the sport. The NBA players' participation policy is designed to foil tanks by mandating that teams play their stars with regularity. But the Jazz has found a workaround to the rule. Their impact players start games, they just don't finish them, and thus they make a mockery of the policy. We got to find a way to win against teams that are, I guess you can say, trying to lose, Heat center Bam Adebayo told reporters after the game. Frankly, though, Hardy will never admit this publicly. The directive to tank is almost certainly coming from his bosses. Utah's 2020-2026 first-round pick is top 8 protected, which means that if the lottery places its selection anywhere from number 1 through 8, the pick stays with the team. If it drops to number 9 or below, the pick is conveyed to the Oklahoma City Thunder. And while it makes total economic sense, the good fortune of drafting a franchise-altering player instantly pumps millions in value. The flagrant tanking debases the sport and insults the fan who invests time and capital. Utah, 17-37, isn't alone. The Washington Wizards, 14-38, traded for a pair of veterans, Anthony Davis and Trae Young, who have 14 combined All-Star appearances. They were curious win-now moves for a team that currently is second to last in the East. Davis and Young were both hurt when they were acquired, and it's unclear when they'll make their return, if they do at all. A recent NBA TV report indicated that Davis was not expected to return the rest of the season with left hand and groin injuries. Young has been dealing with a sprained knee. The timeline for both is nebulous at best. Wizards general manager Will Dawkins recently responded to the report and said Davis will return to Dallas to finish his rehab and that he would be reevaluated over the NBA All-Star break. Davis' original timeline for a return was 4 to 6 weeks. Dawkins, though, put it closer to 10. The Wizards, similar to Utah, have also cycled through their young lineups, particularly when facing some of the NBA's weaker teams. And also, like Utah, Washington's 2026 first-round pick is a top 8 protected. The Indiana Pacers, 13-40, traded for Ivica Zubac, who was away from the Clippers, his former team, for the birth of his first child. Zubac had played in the previous 9 games before the trade, yet Pacers coach Rick Carlisle said Zubac's debut with Indiana will be delayed because of a sprained ankle that hadn't been listed on prior injury reports. Indiana's 2026 first-round pick, if you guessed that it was protected, you would be correct, for numbers 1 through 4 and 10 through 30. The young Brooklyn Nets, 15-37, waived Cam Thomas after they couldn't find a trade partner. They, too, appeared to be in tank mode. The Milwaukee Bucks, 21-30, might convince Giannis Antetokounmpo, to take his time from his calf strain to preserve their draft positioning. Same for the Dallas Mavericks, 19-33, with Kyrie Irving and his torn anterior cruciate ligament. Sacramento Kings, 24-43, are simply without direction. The tanking feels like it will get worse, and while the temptation might be to say it's harmless jockeying, the flip side is that it impacts seeding for the teams actually competing and vying for spots in the playoffs. In some ways, the timing of the All-Star break is convenient. It provides a respite for Silver and league executives to brainstorm ways to eradicate this from the league. If they don't come out strong with precise and targeted measures, then why even play the games? And if you're a fan, why even watch? Questions and answers. Team USA's Chloe Kim's star shines at the 2026 games, bum, shoulder, and all. A highly anticipated news conference arrived, and at its scheduled time, 4 chairs were on the stage for members of the U.S. women's snowboarding half-pipe team. 1 chair remained empty. Chloe Kim knows how to make an entrance, even without intending to do it. "I got so lost coming here," she explained apologetically to teammates, arriving just in time to join them in front of a room full of relieved media members at the Livigno Snow Park. The reporters had questions about her shoulder injury, about her readiness, given the time spent sidelined, about politics back home even, and of course about Kim's confidence in winning a 3rd consecutive Olympic gold medal in the half-pipe competition, which begins February 11th. "The shoulder is feeling good," Kim said. "I have a shoulder brace and it's very securely taped, which kind of sucks at the end of the riding because I have to rip all this tape off and it's awful. But it's worth it because I can snowboard." You can find plenty of stars on Team USA at the 2026 Winter Olympics, but Kim is one of the few superstars. She is a bona fide celebrity with fashion prestige, a Hollywood film credit, more than 1 million Instagram followers, and fame that stretches well beyond the high-flying flips and tricks she has performed better than anyone in her chosen event, going back about a decade. She was only 13 when she made her debut at the X Games. She was 17 when she won her first Olympic gold medal in Pyeongchang in 2018 before making halfpipe history by repeating 4 years later in Beijing. Now 25, she's aiming to win another despite being another American woman Winter Olympics superstar suffering from an injury that casts doubt on her ability to compete in these games. About a month ago, Kim dislocated her left shoulder during a training run in Switzerland. Kim's many fans held their breath about the Olympics until she posted soon after on Instagram that she'd just torn her labrum and intended to compete in Livigno. Indeed, she is here. Not 100% certainly, but trying to stay positive. In a funny way, I feel like it's made my riding better, maybe. And Kim, who said she didn't get back on her board until about 2 weeks ago. I feel like I'm not moving around as much. I feel like I'm more steady because I literally can't move this arm as much as I normally would. How much does a shoulder ailment restrict an Olympic halfpipe routine? Once we're in there and focusing on what we do, the tricks we want to do, everything, the mind goes completely blank. I'm not thinking about my shoulder. I'm thinking about what I'm trying to accomplish. It's early in the games, but it hasn't been a great start at Chile Livigno Snow Park for the Team USA. No medals. But then there's Chloe Kim. Maybe there's hope after all. Maybe her talent just takes over again. Maybe Kim, hardly a favorite in her adverse circumstances, has more magic ahead. I'm really excited to do my run, she offered up tantalizingly. It's one I've never done before, and I think if I'm able to pull that off, regardless of where I place, I'll be really content with that. Ben Ogden ends cross-country drought. Team USA has its first cross-country skiing medal on the 2026 Winter Olympics. Ben Ogden captured the silver medal in the men's sprint classic on Tuesday, February 10th, finishing in 3 hours, 40 minutes, and 61 seconds, less than a second behind Norwegian star Johannes Hausflot Klæbo. Norwegian's Oscar Absted-Vik took the bronze with 3 hours, 46 minutes, and 55 seconds. Ogden's silver ends a nearly 50-year Olympic medal drought for the American men. He becomes just the second U.S. man to win an Olympic cross-country skiing medal and the first to make the podium since Bill Cook captured silver in the 30 kilometers at the 1976 Innisbrook Winter Olympics. My goodness, that's a while back, almost 50 years. Ogden finished in 12th place in the men's sprint classic at the 2022 Beijing Games. He came into the Olympics with 2 World Cup podium finishes, with his most recent bronze coming in the 10-kilometer freestyle in January 2025. Klæbo cruised to his 3rd consecutive sprint gold and 7th overall. Best U.S. figure skating pair at risk of getting beat. Madison Chock and Evan Bates, the 4-time Olympians, 7-time U.S. champions, and 3-time reigning world champions, found themselves in an unusual position Monday night, February 9th, after the rhythm dance portion of the ice dance competition at the 2026 Winter Olympics. Not first. After sweeping to victories in both portions of the team competition to help lead the Americans to the gold medal, Chock and Bates finished in 2nd place, a bit by less than a half point, to the new French team of Laurence Fournier, Baudry, and Guillaume Cizeron. There is much more to come Wednesday in the free dance, but it was natural to wonder if the busy schedule they've been keeping is taking a bit of a toll on them. While the U.S. relied on them for both dance team event programs Friday and Saturday, the entire French team missed the cut, meaning Fournier, Baudry, and Cizeron had the weekend off from competing. And even though Chock and Bates didn't have to skate Sunday, they did come to the arena to cheer on their U.S. teammates, and then received their gold medals, putting in another long day at the office. Schoch said they finally got to sleep at 2 a.m. and slept in, getting a nice solid 10 hours, but there is no doubt that they and Elena Malinen have been the hardest-working gold medal favorites in the figure skating venue. Of course, doing competitions and putting out our best performances, it's an energy exertion, Schoch said. We prepared for it, we're ready, we're trained, and we knew what to expect getting into this. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 15 minutes after the hour. Said Bates, we felt really strong. We felt like it was even better than the team event. It's the feeling of accomplishment that you did your best on the ice and that the rest isn't necessarily all up to us. Coming back after just missing a medal with a fourth-place finish at the 2022 Beijing Olympics, the married couple has been talking about only one thing as they focused on Milan, the gold medal. Being behind the French by 0.46 of a point, 98.18 points to 89.72 points, doesn't mean they won't win, but it's clear that they face some very significant competition. Being just behind doesn't change anything for us, Schoch said. It's business as usual. This will almost certainly be their last Olympic Games, so they don't want to miss a thing. This week has been just a whirlwind and a dream, and we've savored every moment, Schoch said. We're really looking forward to just not miss a second of it and enjoy every last drop this Olympic Games has to give us. On Tuesday, it was giving them something they will gladly accept, a day off. We'll get a little baseball in here. Dodgers lead parade of 690 winners. One powerhouse and a whole lot of parity. That figures to be the theme throughout what should be a tightly bunched Major League Baseball season, and USA Today Sports projected wins total for 2026 reflect as much. Our 5-person panel's aggregate rankings suggest it will be another late September of scoreboard watching, tiebreaker computation, gut-wrenching baseball as the season enters its final stretch. Except perhaps for the Los Angeles Dodgers. They're projected to win the National League West by 8 games, though that will guarantee them little once October comes around and they seek a 3rd consecutive World Series crown. And they're projected to win just 98 games, the panel pegging them for anywhere from 93 to 104 wins. But that's why they play the games, right? A look at our panel's aggregate record projections as the spring training gets underway. AL East. Here comes another coin toss between the Toronto Blue Jays 91-71 and New York Yankees 90-72. The biggest question is this loaded division. How much will the Blue Jays miss Bo Bichette? The odds favor the Baltimore Orioles 85-77 returning to the playoffs, even if they may be one starting pitcher short, but flush with a polar bear. Did the Boston Red Sox 84-78 throw enough into the pot as the price of poker keeps going up in this division? The pitching is as admirably deep as the lineup is questionable. The Tampa Bay Rays 76-86 rearranged an awful lot. Gavin Lux, Cedric Mullins, and Nick Martinez are in. Brandon Lowe, Josh Lowe, and Shane Baz are out and are projected to backslide by 1 whole game. AL Central. The surprise Framber Valdez signing likely iced the division for the Detroit Tigers 90-72, though a very streaky offensive group returns intact for a club that blew a 14-game division lead. Could the Cleveland Guardians 83-79 capitalize on a similar swoon this year? Most of their division-winning group is back, though they'll be counting on rookie Chase Delentier to stay healthy and contribute. A healthy Cole Reagans will go a long way toward the Kansas City Royals 83-79 getting back into contention. But they'll need behemoth slugger Jack Caglione to stick and ensure the lineup extends more than 4 deep. Can the Chicago White Sox 67-95 avoid 100 losses for the first time since 2022? Many eyes will be on them, if only to see whether Mintuka Murakami will be worth far more than the $34 million required to sign him. Hard to believe the Minnesota Twins 65-97 could supplant the White Sox in the cellar with Joe Ryan and Pablo Lopez still around. Then again, maybe they won't be in July. AL West. Acquiring Brandon Donovan filled the last significant hole on the roster and established the Seattle Mariners 92-70 as AL favorites, 1 year after they fell 8 outs shy of their first World Series. The Texas Rangers 86-76 moved the furniture around quite a bit and burned some prospect capital to reel in Mackenzie Gore, who, should he find elusive consistency, may form a dominant 1-2-3 behind Nathan Eovaldi and Jacob deGrom. Are the Houston Astros 84-78 settled for the spring, even as their infield deep and outfield thin? Regardless, the Tucson MI for Framber Valdez swap may determine their fate. The Athletics 76-86 returned for their second of 3 seasons in YOLO country with half their lineup: Brent Rooker, Jacob Wilson, Tyler Soderstrom, and Lawrence Butler, locked into long-term deals. Pitching, though, may not enable them to take the next step. A third consecutive last-place finish is projected for the Los Angeles Angels 72-90, who are nonetheless projected to have 9 players between the ages of 33 and 39 on the active roster. NL East. Since when did the annual playoff runs for the Philadelphia Phillies 92-70 go from a joyous exercise to a siphoning slog? Kyle Schwarber and JT Realmuto are back along with the rest of the gang, though soon minus Nick Castellanos. One of these years it will click. Your January probably wasn't as productive as David Stearns, and for that reason, the New York Mets, 85-75, are once again World Series contenders. So as long as they stay healthy, watching Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, and Bo Bichette align at the top of the lineup will be a treat. Are the Atlanta Braves 84-78 perpetually gone for good from the elite in the perpetual hope for the best mode game October? GM Alex Anthopoulos generally doesn't get stuck in the middle, but they're light on starting pitching, and will be missing shortstop Ha-Seong Kim for a minute. What does a next step look like for the Miami Marlins 79-83? One of baseball's best teams since late June didn't significantly augment unless hitting prospect Owen Caissie is ready to rake from the jump. It will be pretty bad for the Washington Nationals 62-100, who are rightfully rebuilding again, traded Mackenzie Gore, and added virtually nothing externally. NL Central. If Alex Bregman can't get the Chicago Cubs 88-74 over the Brewers' hump, nothing likely can. The Cubs haven't won the Central in a full season since 2017, and Bregman has never missed the playoffs in his 10 full seasons. Of course, the Milwaukee Brewers 85-75 did their part to come back to the pack, dealing ace Freddie Peralta and spinning off reliever Tobias Myers, infielder Caleb Durbin, and outfielder Isaac Collins. Yet it always seems to work out, doesn't it? The Cincinnati Reds, 83-79, dunked into the postseason field on the final day of the season, and we've got them right on the bubble again. Will the good vibes that Eugenio Suarez provides be enough in an otherwise still off season? It was a winter of relative aggression and even a little success for the Pittsburgh Pirates, 74-88, who added some sentient bats at reasonable prices. Enough to click with an increasingly nasty pitching staff? We'll see. They stripped the roster as promised, but how ugly will it get for the St. Louis Cardinals, 68-94? There will be rays of light as young players get their cracks with infielder J.J. Weatherhout, the most anticipated arrival. NL West. What does $550 million in payroll and penalties buy you these days? The Los Angeles Dodgers, 98-64, hope it at least ensures a 13th division title for 14 years. Have they mastered the art of getting their pitchers fresh and safe to October? We'll see. The San Diego Padres, 85-77, remain active even if the salary bacchanalia from a few years ago has ended. If Michael King stays healthy all year, they are a threat. Will Tony Vitello be the shock paddle that jolts the San Francisco Giants away from their addiction to the 500 mark? Probably not. In coming weeks, Arizona Diamondbacks, 80-82, corner infielders Nolan Ariando and Carlos Santana will be 35 and 40 respectively. They will need some gulps from the fountain of youth to ensure the bottom of the Arizona lineup isn't an arid wasteland. We won't yet call it a plan, but the Colorado Rockies, 57-105, do have the semblance of a plan with a brand new upper management, yet even purposeful lab experiments might look ugly in the win-loss column. MLB.TV is streaming to ESPN for the 2026 season. Major League Baseball and ESPN may have ended their Sunday night marriage, but they remain a couple with an announcement Tuesday, February 10th, that ESPN will be streaming home for MLB.TV. We'll be streaming the home for MLB.TV. We're really excited about this partnership, Rosalind Durant, ESPN Executive Vice President of Programming and Acquisition, tells the USA Today Sports. I can tell you that it's been a journey with them, but we've never been closer than we are now, nor have we ever been more deeply connected than we are now. Current ESPN Unlimited Plan subscribers can purchase MLB.TV for $135 for the season, or those without an ESPN Unlimited plan can purchase it for $150. They are also providing monthly plan options for $30, which would include a free month of ESPN for new subscribers. For new MLB.TV subscribers, signing up on the ESPN app provides the option of watching MLB.TV on ESPN or MLB platforms. It's all about providing more value to MLB fans, more value to MLB.TV subscribers, Durant said, providing them with more content and more options. Said ESPN Senior Vice President John Lasker, it basically allows us to bring that wonderful MLB TV product and marry it with ESPN's digital products and platforms to create this ultimate win for baseball fans. We're really excited about what this agreement is allowing baseball and ESPN to do for baseball fans. While NBC and Peacock will now broadcast the exclusive Sunday night games as well as the wild card postseason round, ESPN will still broadcast 30 weeknight games each season. ESPN also will televise the Little League Classic in August and will have rights to games on Memorial Day and the standalone game 2 days after the All-Star Game, which this year features the New York Mets and the Philadelphia Phillies. Netflix will also take over the Home Run Derby and will have exclusive coverage of the New York Yankees San Francisco Giants season opener on March 25th. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 30 minutes after the hour. You might be obsessed with, we're going to start with the life section of the USA Today. You might be obsessed with this Wuthering. Emerald Fennell's take on the literary classic Wuthering Heights isn't exactly a Valentine's Day pick-me-up, yet it's awfully stunning to look at all sorts of toxic obsession, forbidden lust, and gothic sussiness. Margot Hemingway and Jacob Elordi are friends, lovers, and frenemies in a heated rivalry in the posh and tumultuous Heights. And it's rated R in theaters February 13th. Fennell's adaptation takes some liberties with Emily Bronte's 1847 Victorian-era novel, but unless you're a devout superfan, you likely won't be too mad. The Oscar-winning British filmmaker crafts a sumptuous bad romance that's quite haughty, darkly hilarious, and ultimately heartfelt. After an opening where a crowd gets inexplicably hot and bothered at a hanging, an auspicious choice to begin a tragic love tale, abusive alcoholic farmer Mr. Earnshaw, Martin Clunes, brings home a street urchin, Owen Cooper, as an act of charity. He tells his willful, high-maintenance young daughter, Kathy Charlotte Mellington, that the boy can be her pet. She names him Heathcliff, and while the servants, including Kathy's confidant Nellie, Vi Nagyan, aren't excited about having another child to take care of, the two kids grow very close. Kathy even tells Heathcliff one night, "I will never leave you." Years later, their home, Wuthering Heights, has become a withering disaster after Mr. Earnshaw has gambled away their money. Kathy and Heathcliff enjoy a friendship full of tricks and banter and enjoy vexing each other, though Heathcliff fosters strong feelings for his pal. Kathy also is a woman feeling the pressure of getting married, ideally to a dude with money. With wealthy velvet magnate Edgar Linton, Shazad Latif, moves in next door, an opulent Thrushcross Grange. Kathy awkwardly introduces herself. Edgar becomes smitten, and his young ward Isabella, Alison Oliver, loves having a new girlfriend. Heathcliff isn't as joyous, bolting when Kathy and Edgar get engaged, and he returns 5 years later, now wealthy and aiming to cause chaos. Kathy has longed for Heathcliff the whole time. The two begin a secret affair, but it devolves into a cruel battle between them. Fennell's Wuthering Heights is stellar sensory overload with ostentatious costumes and production design, which, interesting, leans into rich people being totally weird. Edgar outfits Kathy's bedroom with walls made to look like her skin, complete with veins and moles. The movie also offers a bunch of original Charlie XCX tunes, spawning a soundtrack much better than the singer's own lackluster mockumentary. It's the director's filmmaking, though, that's striking, showing new depth from the woman who made the delicious, promising young woman and out there Saltburn. She uses misty English moors and oncoming lightning storms to symbolize the broody, electric couple and their complicated emotions. And Fennell fashions visual callbacks to hauntingly reflect Kathy and Heathcliff's childhood in their adult lives, a nod to their arrested development, but also the kind of naive, tight-knit bond only children can have. Fennell has gone so far with Bronte's book that there's bound to be discourse whether it's Heathcliff's mystery ethnicity, he's described as a dark-skinned gypsy in the novel, or him and Kathy being aged up from teens. But you can't argue with Robbie and Elordi's chemistry when it comes to exuding love, hate, and everything in between. Kathy can be selfish and maddening. Heathcliff is both aloof and dastardly. yet they're never unlikable. And while their steamy, sweaty dalliances are hot and heavy, albeit mostly clothed, most swoon-worthy are the smaller moments, such as Heathcliff gently cupping his hands to keep the rain out of Kathy's eyes. Hong Chow is a great choice for the adult Nellie, and quietly resentful sort who causes more friction in Kathy and Heathcliff's tempestuous situation. Lateef lends an inherent goodness to Edgar that makes him a foil for Heathcliff, but also a better man for Kathy. Cooper, an Emmy winner for Adolescence, is just as important as Elordi for their character's arc. However, the one supporting player you might obsess over is Oliver, enchantingly eccentric as a sexually repressed innocent embroiled in Heathcliff's revenge quest. With flair and bombast to spare, Fennel reaches such great heights that this feels like the first must-see movie in 2026, an enthralling retell of an all-time love story through an excessively modern lens. Style star Duchess Meghan. Duchess Meghan surprised red carpet watchers on February 7th, stopping by the 15% Pledge Gala in Los Angeles in a rare public outing. Walking the mint green carpet, Meghan, 44, wore a dusty rose bustier gown with black piping, pairing the look with statement earrings. Her hair was pulled into a sleek low bun, and the dress was finished with a dramatic black cape and strappy open-toed heels. The gala, which this year honored Tina Knowles, mother of Beyoncé and Solange, was founded in 2020 by Aurora James to push retailers to reserve at least 15% of their shelves for Black-owned businesses. Horoscope. Aries, March 21st to April 19th. Pitch your plan. Friends or colleagues are receptive as the Moon and Mars harmonize. Taurus, April 20th to May 20th. You mean business as the Moon and Mars harmonize. The passion you bring to a project wins you others' respect. Gemini, May 21st to June 21st. Making a compromise in your partnership, your other half will think so as the Moon and Mars harmonize. Cancer, June 22nd to July 22nd. Making headway? Maintaining a positive mindset at work delivers a morning breakthrough as the Moon harmonizes with Mars. Leo, which is July 23rd to August 22nd. Making the first move, your courage will be rewarded as the Moon and Mars harmonize. Virgo, August 23rd to September 22nd. Work independently today if possible. The Moon's connection to Mars will help you complete the task you've procrastinated on. Libra, September 23rd to August 23rd. Who will come out on top? Friendly competition is a motivator as the Moon and Mars harmonize. Scorpio, October 24th to November 21st. Coming to a loved one's defense, the Moon connection to Mars provides initiative to step up and handle business. Sagittarius, November 22nd to December 21st. Making your point, use your powers of persuasion as the Moon and Mars harmonize. Capricorn, December 22nd to January 19th. As the Moon and Mars harmonize, visualize what you desire before going after it. Aquarius, January 20th to February 18th. Take the lead. You're the best person for the job as the Moon and Mars harmonize, and everyone knows it. Pisces, February 19th to March 20th. Working smarter, not harder. You're busy behind the scenes as the Moon and Mars harmonize, making effort look effortless. Celebrities. Garner's Once Upon a Farm reaps IPO buzz. Jennifer Garner and Once Upon a Farm co-founder Cassandra Curtis are celebrating a major milestone for the children's nutrition company, which went public on the New York Stock Exchange on February 6th. The duo, along with the company's leadership team and families, rang the NYSE opening bell Friday as Once Upon a Farm made a powerful public market debut, trading under the ticker symbol OFRM. There's just big fat smiles all around here, Garner tells USA Today, adding that the company loves the new ticker symbol, OFRM baby, all the way. Once Upon a Farm is a remarkable business tale that began in 2013 in the San Diego kitchen of a mother of three, Curtis, who couldn't find refrigerated or fresh baby or kids' food at the supermarket. You could find refrigerated cat and dog food, but I couldn't find that for my baby, Curtis said. I saw a big gap in the market. Curtis started Once Upon a Farm in 2015 with co-founder Ari Raz unveiling the first cold-pressured protected baby food pouches designed to preserve more nutrients with fresher flavor. Garner, who made her own baby food for her 3 children, with now ex-husband Ben Affleck, Violet Ann, Serafina Rose, and Samuel, was blown away with the emerging company. I wasn't happy with what was available in the grocery store, where often the baby food could be older than the baby I was feeding, Garner said. That didn't make sense to me, and I did not like making baby food. It was messy and inconvenient. More than that, I found it confusing. Was I doing the right thing for my baby? Garner met with longtime food industry executive and former CEO of Annie's Homegrown, John Foraker, in 2017 about joining Once Upon a Farm. Our conversation instantly turned to mission. This would be the best food available out there, Garner said. But how could we democratize this level of nutrition and make it accessible for as many kids as there are out there? We both said, I'm in it if you're in it. Ari and Cassandra let us join, and we started this journey together. Once Upon a Farm has expanded from a small company to one boasting a full line of fresh children's food without added sugar. That includes refrigerated oat and protein bars, fruit and veggie puffs, and tractor wheel bars. We started as a baby food company, and we've really aged up the brand over time, which was always the vision, Curtis said. The stock opened at $21 a share on Friday, up 16% from its initial public offering price. Garner said the company aims to be allies for parents with 3 core pillars: superior nutrition, clean ingredients, and great taste. Because if it comes right back home in the lunchbox, that is not helping parents out, Garner said. Parents have to know that this nutrition is getting in those bodies and fueling the kids. Garner praises Curtis's testing taste buds as the palate of the gods, but also tries prospective food items with her children. My kids have plenty to say, Garner says. I remember when we first joined, one of my kids saying, "This is very banana forward." Garner will juggle acting career and Once Upon a Farm. Garner, who has highlighted Once Upon a Farm in a popular business credit card commercial, will continue to devote her energy to the company along with her Hollywood career. The Last Thing He Told Me Season 2, which Garner stars in and executive produced, premieres February 20th on Apple TV. The co-founder will remain focused on the company's food mission, which is what brought me here. One of the company's suppliers is Garner's farm in northeast Oklahoma, which has been in her family for nearly a century. This is the time to cement our legacy, she says. I'll continue to keep changing hats, sometimes minute by minute on the set. I go to meetings over Zoom while in hair and makeup. As soon as I have a day off, I'm with these guys somewhere in the country, or I'm at home after work writing emails. If anything, I'll only double down. And as our chief financial officer jokingly reminded me, I'm also under contract, so I'm far from going anywhere. Lady Gaga finds real connection with Pokemon. Lady Gaga reigns as Mother Monster among her devoted fans. She also is an enthusiast of the pocket monsters known as Pokemon. I'm interested in the art artistry of their designs, and I love the way Pokemon celebrates its global community, Lady Gaga told USA Today in an exclusive conversation in late 2025. So universally, they really try to connect with people through joy and creativity. Lady Gaga is among the celebrities trumpeting the 30th anniversary of the Japanese media franchise and its creative creatures through the ad campaign, What's Your Favorite?, which premiered during the Super Bowl 60. The ad also can be seen on the Pokemon YouTube channel. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 45 minutes after the hour. Along with Lady Gaga, a global squad of entertainment and sports stars, Trevor Noah, Charles Leclerc, Jisoo, Maitri, Ramakrishnan, Laman Yamal, and Young Miko, share their affection for specific Pokemon characters. Lady Gaga's favorite is first-generation Pokemon Jigglypuff. The pink creature known for her hypnotic eyes and ability to inflate or deflate like a balloon. She's always been my favorite, honestly, Lady Gaga said. We both have music in common because she likes to soothe her enemies to sleep with her melodies, so it always makes me laugh, and she's pink and has sweet eyes. The Pokemon universe started in 1996 as a video game concept for Nintendo Game Boy before expanding its reach with trading cards, anime, and movies. Lady Gaga says she has been engaged in the Pokemon cosmos for a long, long time and credits the pop culture status as a unifier with her own little monsters. My fans were really into Pokemon, and it was something that connected us, she says. I wanted to be involved with celebrating the anniversary because it's something that connects people around the world. The internet has provided a platform for Lady Gaga fans to integrate their own mashups of her inimitable style and music with Pokemon characters. It's an exercise that has not gone unnoticed by the pop star. Oh yes, I've seen them, Lady Gaga says. They're very, very cute. And you know, that was part of originally what got me interested in Pokemon. Seeing my fans combine those things. I would see them outside hotels and they would have Pokemon gear on, and it was just so cool. Along with celebrating the Pokemon anniversary, Lady Gaga had other reasons to raise a toast after nabbing 2 more Grammy Awards at the February 1st ceremony to bring her tally up to 16. She also is preparing a return to North America for a new round of dates for her elaborate Mayhem Ball, which ended 2025 with a tour gross of $166 million across 35 shows. This new leg, which kicks off February 14th in Glendale, Arizona, might incorporate a few more tweaks, she says. I try to do some unique arrangements for nearly every show, so I'd like to say that musically the show kind of changes a little bit every night, but we'll see. Because I like to do it in an organic way, I think that there might be some changes, but the show is also a theatrical piece that we created to tell a story. Lady Gaga says she appreciates how the creative universe of Pokemon can dovetail with her own innovative instincts, even if only tenuously. All the different ways we can be imaginative and express that, she says. For me, it just makes my day better. Rogan pays tribute to utter genius of O'Hara. Utter genius Catherine O'Hara had her moment at the Directors Guild of American Awards on Saturday, February 7th. After winning Outstanding Directorial Achievement in a Comedy Series for the Studio at the Beverly Hilton Hotel, executive producer Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg praised the Home Alone star who died January 30th at 71. In her final role, O'Hara played Patty Lee, a former studio chief and mentor to Rogen's character Matt Remick in the studio. Of course, honestly, there's no one we wish we could thank in person at this moment more than we would love to thank Catherine O'Hara, Rogan said of the Canadian star. We grew up in Canada and she quite literally was our idol since we were children, Goldberg said. Rogan said they became fans of O'Hara in Home Alone movies in which the actress played the mother of Kevin McAllister, Macaulay Culkin. Home Alone, honestly, is the movie that made me want to go into movies in a lot of ways, Rogan said. And in that movie, she's always yelling, Kevin, Kevin. And on set, she would always be yelling, Evan, Evan. And we were like, it's like Home Alone. But there were even more benefits of getting to know O'Hara. The best part of her is she showed that you can be an utter genius and also the nicest person in the entire world, Goldberg said. Rogan said it was an honor to direct O'Hara each day. So ultimately, we would like to thank Catherine O'Hara for being such a wonderful person and a blessing, and blessing us with her presence, he said. Anderson wins DGA Top Directing Prize. Is Oscar next? Paul Thomas Anderson continues to roll through the award season, taking the key DGA award for Outstanding Directorial Achievement in the theatrical film for One Battle After Another. The Directors Guild honor is a key indicator of success in the director category of the Academy Awards. He also has won the Critics' Choice and Golden Globe Awards, becoming the clear leader in the race. Anderson, who briefly acknowledged his partner Maya Randolph from the podium earlier in the evening, called the DGA award win a tremendous honor. What did Anderson pay tribute to at the DGA Awards? Anderson paid tribute to Assistant Director Adam Sumner, who died in 2024 at 57 from thyroid cancer. Sumner's wife, Carmen Ruiz de Hobrido, was in the audience. We're up here -1, Anderson said. A lot of people here know our hero, our man, Adam Sumner. He took this work so seriously, and he did not take himself seriously at all. Anderson got emotional speaking of his assistant director on several projects, including Licorice Pizza. He was the best, the absolute best, Anderson said. I'm trying to keep it cool, man. I wish everybody in this room, may you be blessed with the relationship I had with him. And if you have one already, hold them close. Remind them that you love them. Nagiani mocks DGA Awards racist past. Kumail Nanjiani didn't hold back on skewering as host of the 78th Directors Guild of America Awards on February 7th, mocking the awards' racist past and tossing in a Jeffrey Epstein joke. Kicking off the annual event, Nanjiani, 47, pointed out from the Beverly Hills Hotel podium that the Guild's Lifetime Achievement Award was known for 5 decades as the D.W. Griffith Award, named after the director most famous for the 1915 film, The Birth of a Nation. The Birth of a Nation glorifies the Ku Klux Klan as a heroic force that maintains white supremacy. It has been called the most reprehensibly racist film in Hollywood history, Nanjiani said. So, of course, we had to change the name of the award as soon as we could, which was 1999. Nanjiani expressed surprise that it took so long and noted that The Matrix was released the same year as the change. We were like, the KKK, let's see how things play out, he said. They changed the name at the 51st DGA Awards. It was the first time something has turned 51 and gotten less racist. Nanjiani also elbowed director Ryan Coogler's Sinners, which has a record 16 Academy Award nominations. Every bad guy in Sinners is a white person, which makes it the most realistic movie of the year. No offense to almost everyone here, he said, looking over the audience. No film has so effectively captured the true horror of white people dancing. Nanjiani calls for one person on Epstein list to be shot into space. During one segment, Nanjiani looked to revered director Steven Spielberg, the most decorated DGA member. The host called Spielberg not only perhaps the greatest filmmaker of all time, He's also clairvoyant. He made movies about everything we're talking about right now. AI, Nazis, Raiders of the Lost Ark, the government coming after harmless aliens, E.T. It's like you predicted the last 10 years of our lives, Nanjiani said. The comedian, who previously had mocked President Donald Trump, then seemed to reference him. Stephen, can your next movie be about an 80-year-old on the Epstein list who gets shot into space? Trump is one among many famous names that have appeared in the Epstein files. The president has denied any wrongdoing and has not been charged in relation to Epstein, the late wealthy, well-connected financier who was charged with sex trafficking girls. Nanjiani got serious about the importance of directors making movies in a troubled world before dropping one more zinger. In this challenging moment, it is more important than ever, and I genuinely, seriously thank you for doing it. You remind us of our shared humanity while also celebrating our differences, because our commonality make us human, but our differences make us beautiful, Nanjiani said. And that is what D.W. Griffith represents. It's your birthday. Who's celebrating today? Actor Tina Louise turns 92. Politician Jeb Bush turns 73. Singer Sheryl Crow, 64. Politician Sarah Palin, 62. Actor Jennifer Aniston, 57. Actor Damian Lewis, 55. Singer-guitarist Mike Shinoda, Linkin Park, 49. Singer-actor Brandy, 47. Singer-actor Kelly Rowland, Destiny's Child, 45. Actor Natalie Dormer, 44. Singer Aubrey O'Day, 42. Actor Taylor Lautner, 34. You have been listening to a reading of the USA Today for Wednesday, February 11th, 2026. We read the USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, call us at 821-5555. Your reader this hour has been Mary Gilmore. Thank you so much for listening.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have episode number 30 of Mark Twain by Ron Chernow airing. Following that at 3 o'clock is Healthy Living, and at 4 o'clock a re-airing of today's Buffalo News. Stay with us for these readings and more. Are you facing challenges with vision loss and need help with your smartphone, sending emails, navigating the internet, and staying connected with your family? VIA, Visually Impaired Advancement, is offering free classes for seniors weekly at multiple locations with free assistance for your smartphone, email, and internet skills. There's a new session every week, and it rotates between the South Towns and the North Towns. It's at your local Erie County libraries and at 10 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. For more information, call Elhana Porter at 716-888-4632. Again, that's 716-888-4632. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision,